share my screen here. All right. Turn off camera, microphone, captions, raise hands. Okay, present now. Let's do your entire screen. Let's do this one. Share. All right, and how is this?
You see
Can
it?
you ladies see it?
Yes.
All right, very good. Okay, so welcome. I'm really excited to have all of you. Let's go ahead and jump right in then. So just some things about me so you feel like you know who I am. I am 33 years old. I was born in Germany, but I am 100% Polish. That's all we speak at home with my mom and dad. We came to the States when I was 6 months old, and we've been in North Carolina since about 1994. My original goals were to be a television reporter. So my idol was Barbara Walters, but life took me the corporate route. And now I'm a compensation analyst during the day and a financial coach in my spare time. Some of my passions include Latin dance, spending time with friends and family, because I'm a single girl, so that's who I'm spending my time with. Watching soccer and exploring everywhere. I am a huge explorer. I travel a ton outside of the country and then just the greenways all over Charlotte. So I am the happiest I've ever been. Life is really good. I feel healthy. I feel successful. I feel excited. And I'm really, really excited that all of you are with me today. So thank you for your time. Just to give you ladies some background, so I started saving when I was 17 years old. So about $5,000 a year, my dad told me, hey, you should probably save, right? How many of you have been told before you should save money, right? But that's kind of all we hear growing up. So I put it into what's called a traditional IRA CD. So we can get to that later. So I put that money in there because someone told me it was a tax cut if I did that. But I never invested it. I just kind of did it because someone told me to, right? How many of us also maybe do things like that? And then as I made a little bit more money, Dad convinced me to increase it a little bit. And then last year, the stock market was hot. There was stuff all over social media about people making a ton of money in the stock market. And I would say that it's really last year. I think that financial influencers were born. So I just kind of started reposting stuff that I would see onto my stories. And what that turned into was a very natural progression of people DMing me. So I would post something to the effect of, oh, if you only save $100 a month, you can be a millionaire by the time you're 60. And people would DM me and say, well, I don't have $100 a month, right? Or, I mean, I have some money in the bank, but what am I supposed to do with it? And then I even had someone reach out and say, I started a side hustle this year. Do you know what I should do? And it turned into a little bit of just an interest project and then a little bit of people asking me questions. And I really wanted to answer their questions because I feel like when someone shares with you something about their finances, that's something super personal to them. And the fact that people trusted me with that information filled me with a lot of pride. And I felt like I had something to give back. And I know for me, it took me a really long time, right, in my adult life to try to find something to give back. And this has been something that I've been able to do, and it really excites me. And I was having dinner with girlfriends one night, and one of the girls brought up a series that I actually have on my social media account called Financial Fridays. And 30 minutes later, we were exchanging phone numbers, and she was my first client. And that's kind of how it turned into what it is now. So that is a good segue into a disclaimer. So ladies, I do want to be very, very clear here. I am self-taught, right? I am not licensed. I am not certified. I am not a CPA. This excites me. This interests me. I can definitely talk about my personal experience and I can talk about things that I've learned, but do understand that what we discuss is for informational purposes only. I do want you to do your own research or consult a financial professional if you decide to move forward with anything. Do your own homework, right? I taught myself all of this, and I definitely encourage you to do the same, but this is a platform for information for us to talk things through. And I want to share my promise to you. I will not answer a question that I do not know the answer to. That's in life and that's in finances. That's just me. I don't have too much of a pride to say if I don't know something, but I'm probably going to try to find you an answer just because of how much I enjoy this. I will be discussing items from my own life experiences. I do discuss things that have been self-researched and self-taught, and I'll give y'all some tips as well at the end of this of how I taught myself. My goal is to share knowledge with all of you and discuss your options. So if you ladies do want my opinion on something, I am happy to share my opinion, but my overarching goal is to make sure that you understand that you do have options in your financial life. I do want you to feel like you can ask me anything and know that it will stay between us. So whether it's here, yes, we're recording the call with all of your permission. So it'll stay here. And then of course, if you choose to work with me after, that will stay between you and I, if you choose to have that time with me. And then same thing. I said it twice, but in a different format. So if you share, just know that it's between us. This is personal, and I am very appreciative that you're trusting me to share this information with me. So rolling through, and then I'll take a breather for a moment. So today's agenda, I want to talk about getting to know your money and your debt and your goals, and then an emergency fund, a high yield savings account, the correct order to invest, and I'll tell y'all why I'm doing the parentheses later. And then if you choose to spend some time with me later, what that session would look like with me. So I'm going to take a breather for a moment. Any questions or thoughts right now, ladies, that I can address before we jump in? All right, I'll take the silence and the thumbs up as a no. So I'll get back to sharing my screen. So the first thing I want to discuss with you all is something that I call getting to know your money. Can you girls see my screen again? Good. Okay. So here's the thing. As I shared with you all, the first thing when people started DMing me for information, and they would say, you know, I don't have X amount of money to invest every single week, or I don't really know how much I spend. I don't really know how much I make. And my first two questions back to them were, well, so what are you doing to figure that information out, right? So a lot of people, women or otherwise, they don't know where to start. They don't know what their goals are. And they can't answer questions sometimes of how much money do I make and how much money do I spend? And that is okay, right? No one may have ever encouraged you to do that before and answer those questions and sit down and think about it. So all of you, if you're interested, if you want to pop your email into the chat, I will send you all my free template that I do share with people that are my clients or not. I do have a template put together that I call Getting to Know Your Money. And I'm actually going to roll this over instead of the PowerPoint for a moment, because I do want to spend some time here. This is something that I encourage all of my clients to do. And then anyone that's just a follower and has some questions about their financial future. So really, I have this separated into 3 separate sections. So the first section is, what money are you spending, right? What regular things are you spending money on, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, whether it's once a year, right? So I've got your rent and your mortgage on here, and you decide what's appropriate for you, right? Are you paying your mortgage twice a month because maybe you heard somewhere that when you do that, you save some money on your mortgage? You know, gas for your car. What kind of estimate do you think that you have there? I have your pet food in here, pet insurance, student loan information. tanning and your nails, right? Think of things that you're doing on a regular basis. Do you spend money on coffee regularly, right? This is a time for you to be honest with yourself and jot down what you're spending money on. And the way that I have this set up, ladies, as well, if y'all choose to share your email with me and I can share this with you, I have these templates as well. So they're fully functional and active. So you can actually choose how often you're getting paid because all of the formulas are already in here for you to calculate your goals. So say, for example, let's throw some numbers in. Say, let's see, it's Charlotte. So let's say you're spending $1,600 a month on your rent. You're spending maybe $30 on water. Your tanning bill is $20 a month, right? And you're just gonna kind of plop your numbers in here, right? Electric, it's the summertime, so it is up right now. Your electric bill's up. Your internet, I'm paying, I think, $50.
You are not kidding, Diana, about the electric bill. It went from gas for me to electric.
Yep.
For sure.
And so some questions that I get here about the money that you're spending. So to your point, right? So electric in the summer right now, we just hit like a record day yesterday, right? So people ask me all the time, well, how do I know how much I put in there for my electric since it changes every month? Since I'm already taking the time to do this activity, I want to use the correct numbers as close as I can. So I actually go into my old bills. I take the average of the last 12 months for that bill, and then I add like $5 or $10 wiggle room because this is going to generate kind of like a monthly average for you, right? So that's kind of what I recommend there. Gas for your car, I know is an estimate. Groceries, right? I mean, depending on if you're single or if you live with someone, or like me, I tend to spend a lot because I really like steak. So my grocery bill tends to be hefty. So, I throw that in here. Your gym. I'm trying to think of some things that maybe you wouldn't think of, but that are regular monthly expenditures. If you like your coffee, girls, put your coffee in, right? If you feel like you're spending $15 a month, that ends up being, $15 a week, that ends up being about $60 a month. Throw that in here, right? This initial step in getting to know your money, again, being honest with yourself. This is not an attempt to restrict yourself. This is not an attempt to kind of put some things away, like, oh, maybe, like, I know that I do this. I know that I go out once a week with the girls and I drop $50 every time I go out, and that ends up being $200 a month. But I'm not going to put that on here because, I don't need that on there. Girls, I want you to put it on here mostly because this, again, I don't call this a budget for a reason. I call this getting to know your money because I want you to understand what you are spending your money on and what you're choosing to spend your money on, right? Your choices are not wrong. Can you alter them a little to make some wiggle room for other things? Sure. But the first time you go through this, I want you to be super honest with yourself about what you're spending, right? So that's my recommendation to all of you.
Hey, Diana, I have a question.
I see the raised hand.
Does this automatically calculate for them in the template?
Yes. So you see, as I'm putting stuff in, it totals down here.
Yeah. Okay. I was just clarifying.
Yep. Yep. So it all goes here, and then y'all should see these numbers moving as well. So these orange numbers connect to everything that's in this column. The green we'll get to in a moment. And then, so it should calculate. And then again, based on if you're getting paid weekly, biweekly, I've had clients that are paid twice a month, the 15th and the 30th, and I have clients that are just paid monthly. So all of the formulas are appropriate to a monthly cost basis, right? So I had a client that is a teacher, and he only got paid 10 months out of the year. So essentially, we took all of his bills for the 10 months. And then we ended up calculating it for 12 so he could see a monthly view. And that's for a reason here as well. I just want you to kind of gauge what's going on. So this is your expenses section. And then here, I want you to drop in how much you're getting from your paychecks, right? So for those of you that are getting a regular paycheck, you're going to drop in what you earn after taxes, right? So your take home money. They call it your gross pay for a reason, because once the government takes out taxes, it is gross. Look at how small that paycheck is, right? So a little money humor there. Thanks for indulging me. So that's the number that I want you to put in there, right? So your biweekly paycheck for the example that we're using here. So let's just say biweekly I'm getting 600. And then again, it kind of does the calculations here. All of this is for a reason, ladies. So you're getting $600 a paycheck. So then for the year, that's how much you're getting, again, after taxes, right? And then the number is divided by 12. So that's about how much you're getting per month. So any questions so far? Are any of you kind of mentally going through some of your expenses and your income and kind of wondering, like, what should I be putting on here? I saw a few nods. And sorry, I'm looking over here. I've got the screens here. Emily, I see you nodding. Is there something you're thinking of that you're wondering about?
Not necessarily wondering, just like kind of in my head trying to think through the numbers that I would be putting in there and the different places that I spend money that I'm not really thinking about until now. Like you said, going out, even like going out to eat, things like that. And I'm like, oh, I do spend a lot of money in that area. But like you said, using a template like this will really help me kind of be able to visualize that and realize kind of where I am spending money.
Yeah. Anyone else questions up to this point? I will say as well, so say you are commission-based, right? So I get the question a lot, oh, well, I'm commission-based. How do I do this? Or I'm self-employed. How do I do this? So for that, I have a recommendation. So it was just tax season, right? I know it was, I guess, on paper 2 months ago, but I feel like taxes never leave our brain because it's a part of our day-to-day. So essentially, what I tell everyone is take a look at your taxes, see how much is said that you earned, and then that's your time to ask those important questions to yourself, right? Well, do I think I'm going to do better this year? Do I think I'm going to do the same? Do I think I'm, maybe I just might not make as much because I'm going to lower down my commitment to how much I'm working on my side hustle, for example. So this is the time for you to be honest with yourself and take a look. So that is the number that I would put in there. And then let's see, it's 6:27, so I want to keep rolling, but
there's two raised hands. There's two raised hands.
Oh, two raised hands. Yes, Michelle.
So I have a question about if you do have a side hustle, where would that go on this spreadsheet?
Yeah. So are you saying in the sense of you've got your day job and a side hustle?
Correct. I'm a graphic designer, so I do a freelance thing every once in a while. I have one project that's a big project every year, and then I have some other smaller things that pop up. So I do know I get paid twice a month in my full-time job, and then occasionally I have some extra income, but it's not like a set thing. So it's not all the time. It's kind of on occasion.
Sure. So the great news is that if you're using this template here, you can throw that extra money in, right? So if you're getting your regular money and then your side hustle, I would just kind of, depending on how good you are with Excel, do the calculations and kind of plop it in here for how much it would be for your biweekly number, right? So I would, the direct answer to your question is I would add it up and throw it in here.
Okay, so look at like a past year and kind of estimate what I think it's going to be.
Yep, that's exactly what I would do. And again, so if you were my client, where I would take that conversation is what job do you want to give your money? So when I say that, what I mean is, do you want to just complete this template and getting to know your money of what you're making in your full-time job as the numbers here? And then everything else is going to be maybe for some of your goals, right? For a travel fund or something. So that's where you can start thinking about what your goals are with those extra funds as well. And then I would direct you from there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. I know Jordan has a hand up.
Yeah, so I had a question. How often do you adjust this? Because for some months, like Christmas, maybe you'll have more expenses, or for like a vacation, do you kind of do this every single month and go off that, or is it more just like a year in review type thing?
Yeah, I love that question. So the way that I do that specific questions that you just asked, so the only time that I alter this sheet is if there is a big change in my expenses, right? So say I just got a new place and my rent went up. So then I'm going to alter the sheet. Or if something went down, if I decide to cut out my tanning every month, sometimes that $20 a month is a chunk of change that does something good for you. With the Christmas fund, I would actually, as my client, I would recommend one of two things, depending on what makes more sense to you. Does it make sense to change this, for example, to Christmas fund, right? And then this is going to be your saving bucket. And then you put away every paycheck into this Christmas fund that we would calculate for you. Or do we just want to see that as a monthly expense and say you want to spend $1,200 a year, so that's $100 a month, and you add it into your expenses that way. So either way.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Robin?
Yes. So were you describing basically fixed versus variable expenses? Because every month certain things might change, right?
Yeah.
But not all things. So you've got your fixed, and then you have maybe the next month. Could you just repeat this? For example, let's say this is January, and then you copy and paste it into another tab, and then that's February.
Yes.
And then copy and paste the new one for March, and then you keep the template and you change the ones that are variable, such as not drinking all your coffee this month. You know what I'm saying? Because we decided to cut back because it's giving us anxiety. No, I'm just kidding. But so we decided to not drink as much coffee. So obviously that expense goes down.
Yep, absolutely. So that, again, will be up to the client, right? So do you want to make adjustments every month and see how you feel at the end of every month? Or does it help your brain if you know your goals? So there is a sheet in my presentation that we'll get back to in a moment that says, think about your goals, right? And that's something that I talk with my clients about. I actually ask them some questions of, if I handed you $1 million today with no taxes, what would you do with that money? But then let's say I knew the future and I told you that you might get hit by a car next week. What would you do with that money? And thinking about your money goals in sometimes dramatic ways helps you realize, right? If you're thinking I'm going to get hit by a car next week, your first thought is, I want to buy things for my family, or I want to help my parents pay off their home, right? Well, then maybe that's not going to be an expense for you, but maybe you do decide, you know what? My parents are getting older. I have the means. I'm going to have a parents' house fund. And this year for Christmas, I'm going to give them a check, right? And so the long answer to your question about variable or fixed, it's sometimes taking that next step to think about what you would do in certain situations and what's important to you right now, but what you also think may be important for you in the future. So that was a long answer to the multiple questions here, but are you girls kind of getting where I'm tracking this here? Okay, cool. So we're at 33 minutes. And again, I definitely have an agenda that I want to get to. What I will say though, again, this is free to anyone that is a client or not. This is, if you decide to have some time with me in the future, this is the first thing that we discuss. This is the entire session that you have with me. We'll have this pulled up on the screen, right? So this very much, this is not for you to feel sticky or uncomfortable. This is to make you feel realistic about what's going on in your life. And this is to really show you where you are, right? And then the biggest thing is, does your money have a job? I bring that up a lot with my clients. I want to make sure that your money has a job. So that's what we're getting to with this. As you see also, ladies, there would be some goals that you're setting aside for yourself, right? Some savings goals. So these are all things that we discuss. this person with the numbers on the screens, they're actually spending more than they're making, right? So we would have some discussions there, which are going to be on my next few slides. But then if they're making extra, we're going to have those conversations as well, right? So let's drop back to the PowerPoint. All right, so, the questions are going to come up. What numbers can you affect on the getting to know your money sheet? So some conversations that we would have if you were my client are, can you lower any of your expenses? Can you increase your income? Does your money have a job? And have you included some fun money, right? So as you get into the financial world and as you really start to pay attention to what your money is doing, you will learn that the fastest way to financial freedom is by living below your means, right? So you'll hear sometimes financial coaches will talk about you should be putting X% amount away from every single paycheck, but that's just not everyone's reality, right? That's why personal finance is personal and it's so different with everyone. So there are things that you can manipulate in the getting to know your money sheet, right? But I will say 90% of my clients, when I ask them, do you know how much you spend and do you know how much you make? They don't know the answer to that question. And so you always start here, always, in my opinion. All right. So rolling forward, let's talk about an emergency fund. And I want to bring something to your attention, ladies. I'm bringing up an emergency fund before I'm bringing up your debt. Okay. So there is a reason for this. And there is a reason that I advocate so hard for an emergency fund. What you don't want to do is find yourself in a really bad situation in life and also be broke, right? And life happens, right? There was some guy posting this morning about a tree that fell onto his family's driveway and knocked out the fence and knocked out something in the neighbor's yard, right? And he needed that money. How many of us dread going to the dentist because when we go, we have the feeling they're going to give us some bad news, right? And debt tends to be what really sits on people's hearts and people's shoulders. But the reality is that you can tackle your debt and you can save for future emergencies at the same time. And I am a huge advocate of having an emergency fund. So I'm always going to tell you to start with $1,000, at least start there. I think it's something like 45% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in the bank, right? So if you do, congrats to you. If you don't, that's okay. That's why you're on this call today. That's why we're having this conversation, right? So it's fine. But start with $1,000. And then it says here, then 3 months and then 6 months. So what I'm getting at, ladies, so if you flip back here, it shows you what your actual monthly total is, and then it'll calculate here for you your monthly expenses. So my recommendation is going to be to start with $1,000 in your emergency fund, then go up to whatever this number is times 3, and then get up to this number times 6. And then for any of you that have kids in your life, my recommendation will always be 12 months of an emergency fund. Okay. And then just to spice the call up a little bit, some people call this the FU fund, right? So if you are in a job that is draining you, that makes you miserable, that is literally affecting your home life, well, FU, I have 6 months now to find a new job and make sure that I'm taking care of myself first, right? Because just like on an airplane, you got to put on your own mask before you help others. If you do not feel like you have the capability to control a little something in our lives, right? Women, sometimes they want that little bit of control. This emergency fund is going to help you have that sense of financial control in your life and know that at the end of the day that you'll be okay. And then these funds should be in liquid form. So we'll get there in a minute. But what liquid means is that you should be able to grab them, whether it's to go to an ATM or to transfer the funds to make those funds available to you within 24 to 48 hours kind of deal. So that is an emergency fund, and that rolls right into an account that I would like to recommend to every single one of you. It is an account that I cannot live without now, and I have 5 of these accounts. So ladies, this is something that it is called a high yield savings account. I see I have one of them with American Express. Yep. So ladies, so what is a high yield savings account? So a high yield savings account is probably just like the savings account that you have at your current bank that you have right now. But the interest on it is a smidge higher because they're not paying overhead. So most high yield savings accounts are in online banks. So they don't have physical buildings that they have to pay rent for. So they offer you more interest. Now, what does that mean they offer you more interest? So have you ladies ever checked your bank accounts and you randomly once a month get like a penny or 7 pennies in your account and you're like, yeah, right? Well, what if I told you instead of a penny, you could get like $1? So let me be really clear. The interest that you're earning on these accounts are not huge, right? So I put down here, this is not an investment tool. So let me be super clear. This rolls into the previous slide where I said that the funds need to be liquid, right? So for example, I have Marcus for my high yield savings account. Ally is another one that I hear really good things about. We just heard someone has an American Express account with high yield savings. So right now, I actually got an email yesterday. Marcus just went up to 1% interest. So just to give you girls some reference here, 1% is on $100, $1. On $1,000, that's 10, and on $10,000, that is $100, right? Over a year. Okay, so APR. Over the year, you'll get $100 on your 10,000, assuming that you have the 10,000 in there. Now, you know, what's the difference? Like $100, or let's say those pennies add up to 25 pennies at the end of the year, or 12 pennies, I guess, in reference if we're looking at the monthly penny that you're getting. And I remember even asking someone one time, because when I first signed up, the account, the interest is variable, right? So the account was 0.55 was the interest rate. And I said to someone, I said, I'm going to put 10,000 in there. So that's $55. Is that worth it over a year? Like, should I really be stressing about opening another bank account, right? When I'm only getting $55 a year? Well, if you're walking down the rail trail like we do on Sundays with Charlotte Girls Who Walk, if you see $55 on the ground, are you not going to pick it up, right? And now it's 100 because interest rates and inflation. So yep, I'm definitely picking up 100 with you girls. If you don't, I'm gonna pick up your 100 for you. So, so high yield savings account. You can have multiple accounts. I love my high yield savings accounts. So it is actually a proven fact that when you name your bank accounts, it helps motivate you, right? So I have 5 accounts. I've got my emergency fund. I have a travel fund. I have a new bed fund because it's about time, a new cell phone fund, and then, season tickets, because I'm a season ticket holder for Charlotte FC. So I'm already saving money, right? Because I made that a goal. I'm already saving money for next year's season tickets. So in my mind, I know when I'm putting away the whopping $20 every single week, I know what I'm putting that money away for, right? And that's motivational to me. I know what I'm building that account for. I'm looking forward to how fancy schmancy of a bed that I can buy, and I'm putting money away for that too. So high yield savings accounts. I will say, ladies, if and when you decide, because I do recommend that you do your own research on this, if you decide to open up a high yield savings account and you find yourself on Google, the 2 things that I want you to look for is it FDIC insured? So if the government goes to shit and the bank closes, you are protected up to usually $100,000, right? So is it FDIC insured is the thing you need to look out for. And then what are the fees like? So Marcus specifically has no fees. And if I want to roll it into my Wells Fargo account, so I pulled money out like last week for something from my high yield savings. Oh, I was buying, what was I buying? I don't remember, something for my phone plan, but I pulled that money out of my phone section, right, of my little Marcus account, and it took, I think, like 24 hours, right under 24 hours, 16 maybe, to roll over. So that's what I mean when it's liquid, right? You get the money in 24 to 48 hours. Don't stress yourself out over this. If you find yourself doing more than 10 to 15 minutes of research on this, you're giving yourself an unneeded headache. 90% of them are the same, I promise. But the two things, make sure it's FDIC insured, and then make sure that there's no fees. I'm going to keep rolling here. So there is a reason that we're this far into the presentation and I have not talked about your debt yet, right? So getting to know your debt, it gives people anxiety. Some people just ignore it and forget that it's there, and that is fine. But that's why we have the conversations, right? So some things that I recommend when you're taking a look at your debt, take a look at what is the debt, how much is the debt, what is the interest on it, is there a due date, and then is this debt good or bad? So I have a little infographic. I originally, when I was putting together this PowerPoint for you ladies, this thing was so heavy duty with so much information and all of that, but I want this to feel human, and again, conversational to you. So I kind of just put this little infographic here. So there is a difference between good and bad debt, and there's some things that are listed on your screen for you. But I follow the rule of 7. So what that means is, one of the questions that I want you to ask yourself when you're taking a look at your debt is, what is the interest on this debt? Now, the reason that there is something that you can literally Google, and it's called the 7% rule, is because over the last 100 years, the stock market has had gains of 8 to 10%, assuming you're making smart investments, right? 8 to 10% overall over 100 years has been what the stock market has returned to people that choose to invest. So why 7%? That's keeping up with the people that are conservative with their estimates. And a lot of what people say is good and bad debt really does kind of fall around that 7% mark. So if you choose to spend some additional time with me, the things that we would discuss is all of your debt that is more than 7% interest, you are going to pay off that debt before we ever have a conversation about investing. Okay. Now, again, that's because investing is going to give you a return, but I don't want you to, I would not recommend that you put money into investments when it's actually going to cost you more to invest than it is to pay off your debt and get ahead of things, right? So there are a few recommended debt reduction strategies. The two best, the best known ones that you can Google are called Snowball and Avalanche. So if you ladies are interested in that, make sure to throw that into Google. But 7%, right? So credit card debt, oh my goodness, that's usually sitting around 18 to 21%, right? So we want to make sure that we're paying that off. We want to make sure that a car loan, right? Some people get under the 7% depending on your credit score, but cash advance loans, all of that, that's going to be what on paper is considered bad debt that's over 7%. Now, things like a student loan, right? Maybe it's just sitting at 3 to 4%. I'm actually going to tell you to invest at the same time that you pay off that debt. So 7% rule, Google it if you want to move forward in understanding more about that. And then if you choose to spend some time with me after this call on another day, then the 7% rule is what you're taking a look at and what we'll be discussing. All right, and then getting to know your goals. So I've already given y'all a taste of a little bit here. This is very important to your process. This is very important for you to understand, right? I had a client last week and called me and said, Diana, help me open this Marcus account because I'm ready to propose in a year. And we talked about that, right? And I had to ask the question, do you know if it's going to be in a year, more than a year, less than a year? Because that's also how I would have determined what my recommendation was in sharing the options for this person to move forward. Diana, I hate my apartment, but I don't have the means to buy a house right now. So can you talk to me about that? Sure, let's talk about it. You know, do you hate your job and you want to build that FU fund, but you don't know where to start? That's something, right? So getting to know your goals. I listened to a podcast yesterday where I literally, that's how I came up with the examples of, you know, what would you do if I handed you $1 million right now, no strings attached? And then what would you do if you had 1 week left, right? And just thinking about sometimes those dramatic things, but think about what your goals are. I'm a single girl that lives in South End, so my goals are season tickets. I'm an exciting human. I got big goals, girls. So we've all got our thing, right? So think about what's important to you. Think about what your goals are. And those are conversations that I want to have with you if and when you decide to work with me, because that's very important for me to know so we can decide what's best for you. And then the second to last thing here, again, you know, personal finance is personal, ladies. So getting to this point here, investing is the thing that, interestingly enough, everything we've discussed so far has been what excites me more than investing. Investing is exciting, but investing comes with all the options in the world, and those are such longer conversations and ones that I do enjoy having. But I think it's everything that we've discussed up to this point that really, when I discuss it with my clients, it makes me excited and it makes me hopeful. And I've had clients leave crying happy tears before because one of them was working 3 jobs, but he didn't have goals, right? And he didn't know his money. And so he knew he was working 3 jobs. He knew he was exhausted, but he didn't know what he was saving for, and he didn't know what he was working for, right? And those conversations, having those conversations with him were so exciting for me because he was able to open up to me about what the goals were, and we were able to put a plan in place for what made the most sense for him. So investing, just to kind of, again, bring this full circle holistically, since this is a financial coaching call, I did want to touch on investing. So there is a recommended correct steps, right? Correct order in which to invest. So step 1, look at that, pay off your debt, your high interest debt. And it even says that, and I actually did not create this. So in the financial world, the first thing that you'll hear is pay off your high interest debt, right? Look at that. Step 2, build an emergency fund. If you're a client with me, I actually recommend you do those both at the same time. So I would combine step 1 and step 2, because again, what you don't want to find yourself in is a really crappy situation. You know, say I feel like I'm on the verge of some not fun ideas sometimes here, but you know, you get into a car accident and everyone's healthy and fine, but then you've got your $500 deductible, right? And so that's like a really crappy time in your life. And if you have that emergency fund, you're going to have the money to pay that deductible, right? So I will actually recommend, if you're my client, to do step 1 and 2 at the exact same time. And in getting to know your money, we will kind of calculate what makes sense and how much and how often to get those things done. Step 3, you will hear a lot about this one if you do follow anything financial oriented on social media. Contribute to your 401 enough to get your employer match, because it is free money. And that is true. It's free money. If you are getting if you're making $100,000 a year and they have a 3% match, that is $3,000. Am I doing that math right off the top of my head? 3,000. Yep. 3,000 free money that they're going to give you every year, right? So step 3, man, get enough in there to get your employer match. Step 4, 5, 6. So those are other investment vessels. Something that I will tell you that if you girls want to do some research on, the accounts that are listed here, the 401k, the Roth IRA, and then the non-retirement related investing. Something that I will share with you is that these are bank accounts, right? So this is not investing. So one of my favorite analogies that I use with my clients. So when you go and buy a gift card for someone, right? That is the equivalent of a 401k. You're buying the gift card. But if you just stick it in a drawer and you never go and spend what's on your gift card, you're never going to end up with those new shoes in your closet, right? So a 401k is a gift card. That is a bank account. But then step 2 is to use that money to invest. So then you're going to go use that gift card and buy that new pair of shoes, right? So when you are doing research on these things, I have another client 2-3 weeks ago, we were talking about their HSA account. So they were putting money into something called a health savings account. And I asked the question, so what's it invested in? How much has it grown? And they said, what do you mean? So they've been putting money away for 1.5 years into an account. So they bought the gift card, but they threw the damn gift card in a drawer, ladies. So finding out if the gift cards that you're buying can be spent or if they're just in a drawer. So make sure you're finding out about the different possible accounts that you have, especially when it comes to those work ones, ladies. There was talks in the news about a month ago that it might be a requirement for some of our jobs to open up 401s for us and put a certain percentage in there. And I hate to say it, but the way that the world works, sometimes they may not tell you, right? And you just went from having an $800 paycheck to like $770 now, right? And they're taking like $30 a week from you. Now, are they taking in your best interest? Yes. But did they tell you, and do you know where your money's going? If you're not having these conversations, you may not know where that's going, right? So these are important things to understand. So something to keep in mind. And I'm sorry I'm running over these last few. Again, you can see where my passion was in the getting to know your money section, because that is really where a lot of people find the benefit in their time with me. And then as we spend more time together, we get into these other things. So I am going to pause there for a moment. Any thoughts before we wrap things and get into the question section? Okay. Can you drop your email here in the chat when you are done? Yes, of course I can. And so, ladies, I've been mentioning a few times that I do take clients and that I would love to see some of you if you would like some additional time with me to continue talking about your personal portion of your finances. So some things that we do discuss and things that I do have experience in, if you choose to spend some more time with me, is the getting to know your money evaluation. So we will spend time there. I do recommend that you put it together on your own, right? And then I take a look at, do you feel like you have everything on here that you're spending money on? Do you know which expenses we can lower for you? Do you know where we can try to increase your income, right? We're going to have those conversations. So we're actually going to sit in the getting to know your money. Like I said, probably for the majority of the time that you're with me. And then some things that I discuss, I also discuss things that you may not think about, right? Beneficiaries on all of your accounts. Can all of you confidently tell me right now that you have a beneficiary on every single account that you own? I see some shakes, right? That is important. I talk about how to, Bren, yes, awesome. You've got it, girl. Your credit score, do you know what your credit score is? Do you know how to look it up? Do you know the 5 things that make up your credit score? And then do you know how to increase your credit score? We can have all of those conversations. All right. Every month. I love it. Checking your credit every month. All right. Goals, right? That's a big one. I talk to you ladies about that. That's a big one to understand. We talk about inflation because it's all over the news. So what the heck is inflation? Why do you care? Retirement. So again, I have 1, 2, 3, 3 retirement accounts plus a brokerage. So it's something that I feel, super excited about. And it's something that is, it's a big deal, right? It's easy to think about today. And I always say live for the moment and enjoy the moment. But I grew up with parents that came from another country that came over here with 2 suitcases and me in a poopy diaper. And, we talk about those things and we worry about, how I can thank them one day for bringing me here and giving me this life. So weird story to tie into retirement, but I think about retirement of myself and my family. So negotiating a higher salary. I'm so excited. One of my girlfriends accepted a role last week. She didn't take the first offer or the second. We worked on getting her that third offer that ended up being well worth it for her. And she is completely about to change her life as a woman in her mid-20s. And I'm just so excited for her. Compound interest, the 8th wonder of the world, according to Einstein. Compound interest, we'll talk about it. Figuring out how to calculate your net worth, right? That's important. I reached 6 figures in net worth for the first time last year. I'm on track to get to 7 in like 12 years, I think. So 7 figures instead of the 6 that I'm in right now. So that's exciting. I'm going to talk to you about credit cards, a home purchase, your kids and money, right? So I have 4 minutes left. Did not know that. Okay. And then question time. With the 4 minutes, sorry, I was told that there was no time limit on this. My bad. Ladies, questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if we are interested in working with you, how do we go about doing that? Is it like set up appointments, like we have like an hour with you, or is it just, we figure out the best way to work? And the weird question of it, what is your fee?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So what I do is it is $50 to take my time. So $50, you will include your first hour. So it's $50 up front to book that time with me. You can DM me, you can email me, whatever makes sense for you. And then after that, it'll be an additional $50 an hour. Now, do I sit there and look at the ticker? No. But that's, kind of sort of, we will see what makes sense, but blanket answer, $50 an hour, $50 to set up front, and feel free to DM me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Wendy, question?
So this goes along with her question. So I know everyone is different, but how much time does a typical person need to spend with you before they feel like I got this and, have my plan to move forward?
Yeah, love this question. So usually my sessions, so for singles, it usually takes an hour, hour and a half. I have worked with couples before that was closer to 2 to 3 hours. I had a family of 4 that worked with me before that was closer to 3 hours. And then, again, it really depends on how you want to spend your time, right? So some people come to me and we just have the conversation about getting to know your money, and maybe they're spending more than they're making. So they have to lower their expenses before we can continue the conversation. So then we don't speak again for 3 to 6 months until they're able to kind of flip-flop their numbers, right? If you're in a decent financial situation, if you're making more than you're spending, but you want to put your goals down on paper and ask me questions about what you should do with that extra money, we can probably knock things out in an hour, hour and a half, right? So it depends on where you are. It depends on how much prep you do before, right? Again, the getting to know your money template is free to all of you. So if you do want to spend time with me, fill it out before you come to me, right? And then we'll just kind of evaluate it together and we can spend our time talking about something different that makes more sense to you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other thoughts? Was this helpful? It was my first one. I was so nervous. Okay. I'm
It's very helpful.
I'm so hot over here. and I know it's probably going to cut us off in a moment, but girls, talk to me on our walks, right? If you want to ask me some questions on our walks, like I'm not going to say you owe me $5 for this conversation. You know, this is very personal to everyone. It gives a lot of people anxiety, but I'm telling you, just even that getting to know your money sheet, ladies, just getting that together gives people so much confidence in just knowing what's happening.
So Robin's microphone, she's having some internet issues. So I'm going to go ahead and thank you, Diana, for being willing to speak to everybody. I know that I had heard girls talk about how interested they were in hearing you talk. So super awesome. Thank you so much. Thank all of you. Thank you to all of you ladies who showed up for our second Charlotte Girls Who Talk. We appreciate that. Next week, we are going to have Susan. We're going to be talking about women's health. So if you are interested, we'll see you next week at 6. We'll do link in the Discord and everything. And then Diana, I have tagged her on the Instagram story. So if you're interested in connecting with her, that would be a great way. And she also shared her email in the chat. But yeah, so thank you all for coming. And huge thank you again to Diana.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diana.
Thank you. I'm taking your emails from the chat, so I'll send y'all the sheet after.
Diana, I compiled them into a Google Doc for you. That's why we asked for your email, so I can just email them to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. This was great.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.